Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Owl Bob. Me, I'm all dressed in my new Corona 19 summer wear. Hmm. Ah. Hmm. And remember, this show is just for gaps and giggles. Hmm. Well, I figured I actually had $32. There she is. Hey, sweetie, I got your phone message. It's hard. I have to drive someplace to pick up a phone signal, right? So, so yesterday went through my. I haven't listened to my voicemail in months since like May, and there you were. You got the greatest voice. I am going to be at that same spot making phone calls. Around it's now 10:26 here. I'll probably be on for the next hour or so, and then I'm going to drive over there. So by around 12:30, 1 o'clock, I'm going to be talking on the phone, listening. And if you pop up there, I will answer it immediately. No matter who I'm talking to anybody, I'm getting rid of them and talking to you, right? The other thing is the Gmail works excellent, and I do go check that out a little more regularly than my what you call it, my voicemail. And I also receive um, messaging on my phone number, so you can message me on that, and that's probably the best. I mean, I see that it pops right up on my phone immediately, right? So anyway, so today's subject. Don't let anything go to waste. Is diversity. Right? So back in the day, when I was a itinerant scholar, I still am an itinerant scholar, just like I still am an electrician, and I still am a healer, and I still am an artist. Because once you become those things, you say those things, right? Once you master that skill, once you master any skill, you can master anything. That stupid saying, you know, yo-yo of one thing is never a master of anything. No, you know, you can, the thing is never to be an expert. That is the kiss of that. Yep, just don't forget. And so, so I had been a community activist for, in every, from the 60s through the, which I was, civil rights, anti-war, feminism, and in '72 I kind of, was with this person who I adored, and we had gone to Juilliard together. She was a great dancer. She was part, as I was, part of the Robert Wilson Dance Company, and we were on a tour, and he was getting, he had gone, he was a dilettante. He never danced. He never did anything. He never went to, all of us had experience, and the Greek verb for knowledge is to understand through experience. Not going to school and getting a certificate. So Robert had, he had some money. He was, had trust. He was a, what I call trust fundian, right? And so, but he went through that money like that. And the only person left in his family was Chris Knowles, who was, real autistic, real like Rain Man, but even more interesting. And so, um, uh, so we hit the road, and we ended up and we were always doing our dances for rich people in their homes, right? And this is when I learned what liberals are. Liberals are people who feel guilty about being racist, right? And Angela Davis married Hilton Braithwaite, and Hilton was a really good friend of my first wife, and so I got to know them. And Angela was, she was like, Hilton and my wife used to go. Those two should have married each other. They're like brainiacs. Know. And Angela was. She was. I don't pretend to be a brainiac. But boy, she was brilliant, and I'm really attracted to brilliance. You know, and that's why I like Lana so much because she's brilliant, and she just has to, you know, Lana, you get upset with the human race because pretty much everyone's a moron, and that really upsets you, and you have to deal with it, and it's just let it go. You know, enjoy your life. I mean, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, but Lana, what you are is a Aboriginal savage, the artist in the first person. That person who put the image on the cave wall. That's you. Yes, and the caps so I can read it, gang. Everyone can put in caps. Not that she's aggro. It's because she's being very considerate that I can't see anything. So yeah, so I can see right. And that's a good friend considers the other, right? And I am the poster boy of the other. I'm everybody's other. And one guy once said, one sheriff in a southern town that I was a newspaper photographer, he said, Al, we all love you, but if there was more than one of you, we'd have to kill you. and, and that has been one of my mechanisms, is that pretty much I'm the only guy. And I have another person, a client, a really, really rich guy that, he hired me to negotiate this thing. And he knew me well. And so it was like putting me out at the edge so everyone would attack me and not him. And I was like the sacrificial lamb, right? But no, I could read all these pudding heads to the point where I just made them to the point where they all agreed on his point so he could move forward with what he wanted so they could get rid of me. He once said to me, Al, you're an acquired taste. Yeah. And the other thing about me is that a lot of people hook onto me and think I'm like John Boy, um, the canary in the coal mine who bought my school. And one of my school, I was just looking after it for 10 years. Yes, and I paid the taxes, I had the insurance, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't mine, right? The school had an energy unto itself. The hill definitely had an energy, just like around here. I was telling you, there's this gigantic bar of iron that goes from basically upstate New York to Georgia, along the Appalachian and Blue Ridge. Right along. A little bit there, and then a little bit here, and then sometimes right in the middle along the valley. And right where I am, right where the deep green is, that chunk of metal comes out of the ground for about 12 miles. And it goes right, and there's no way. So this clown built a road across, the front lawn. It's a right of way. So if you're going to go to that place up there, yeah, you got a right to go. But it's not a common road. Not everyone can. So John Boy wanted to, can I come and stay with you at the deep? Well, there's no toilet, there's no electricity, no water. You're gonna have to sleep on the ground, and there are bugs like you cannot friggin' believe. Now, I haven't taken a shower or washed myself. I mean, I spritz my voodoo sauce on my hand and do this, and I'm good to go. And I do spritz it under, but I don't smell because of what I eat. I don't eat that much, so I don't smell. Right? If you have BO, it's because of what you're eating and also the anxiety that you have. I have no anxiety. So anyway, all these rich people from DC, Florida, um, Atlanta, and I always forget the name of North Carolina city, the banking city. Well, they're all get away. Yep, just bitch slap them. Yep. Um, so, uh, so, and it's how you bitch slap people. See, I can read people like a book. So instead of having to, I can just do things. Like if you are, anally retentive, I'll just scratch my butt all day long, and you'll be like, or if you're really upset about someone picking their nose, I can just do that all day long. So everyone has tells. You can read them. Once you can read people's tells, you can take them apart. Um, I stayed with John for a year and a half, give or take, because the three rules: doctor do no harm, right? Wasn't doing any harm. Um, don't get involved unless you can see a positive exit strategy, and you can help the innocents, right? And the innocence was his whole family. The exit strategy is that he could be a human being. Third, don't get involved unless you can learn something. And boy, did I learn a lot from John. He was like, the experiment, And go read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's not a horror movie. It's not any of that stuff. It's a book about bad parenting. She had she didn't have bad parents, but her parents were luminaries, and so she, was in the shadow. But and usually people of that nature can get full of themselves, especially if they get a lot of publicity. And so that was Mary Shelley. So the book Frankenstein is about, here's Dr. Frankenstein, and he creates a being. So what do two people do when they have a baby? They create a being, right? So Frank did that. And then he just cuts and they never called him a monster. They called him a creature. They just cut him loose. And nobody taught him anything. That's why he went, because, nobody taught him anything. But you read that book, he's the most eloquent there, right? And that's kind of how I saw, what John was everything, and that was a great thing. And is still the great thing. And you go watch his videos, and they're like, huh? Because they're like, again, he's the canary in the coal mine. He is representing what's going on, right? And yes, he is all of that. But he keeps, wanting to be me. He never says that, but and he always wants to be he wants to be his father, right? He wants to be anybody but himself. And the book you really need to read, John, is Self Reliance by who's that guy? Will pop into my mind. I was reading him the other night. You know, 19th century, 18th century American guy. You know, uh, it'll pop in. Anyway, and so what does this guy talk about Self Reliance? Yes, he's that too. But we live in a sociopathic culture, you know. And see, the thing is, we aren't nation states. You know, the United States, China, Russia, blah 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 blah. That all there is the hidden hand that runs everything, and has been for a million years, you know, or maybe a billion years. And we have been hijacked. Our souls have been hijacked. That's what, you know, when we left the garden, that's what happened. We got hijacked and given these bodies. You know, the picture of Adam and Eve like hiding their private parts, you know, which just made them stand out more. And all the animals are kind of looking at them going, there used to be a TV show on cable. I don't know if it's still there, called something chicken, late at night. And they had this one little animation of alien coming down. And you know, there's this cheeky monkey that's running around, and they're trying to zap him to experiment on him. Well, they can't catch him, right? He's like Curious George, you know, he's just bouncing all over the place. And so the slow kind of do 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 do, they get him and experiment with him and genetically change him into human beings. So the character do 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 is still there, but there's this new character, Homo sapien sapien, right? Who is the stupidest one of them all. And the one who's the smartest is the monkey who's bouncing around, and he's always playing tricks on the aliens. You know, like pulling out the chair just before the alien sits down, and the alien, you know, he's got all this technology. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's a demigod compared to everybody on Earth. Yes, right. Uh, yeah, everything we do creates ripples, and that's so true. And but good ripples and bad ripples, meaning um, my life has, you know, if you look at it, you know, like, oh my God, look, you know, look what all the places. You know, he's always living with poor people. He's always like in a, you know, conflict zone. He's always dealing with tragedy. Well, that's because I was needed, you know, and then he never takes any, you know, he made this happen, and he doesn't, you know, oh, I made this, you know, he just moves on to the next thing. Well, why would I even want credit for it? You know, you go read my new um, novel, Legend, you know, number 10, meaning I've been writing it and posting it on xratted.blogspot.com. And, you know, there's maybe 5 or 6 slices, numbers. And so you can see the growth of the novel. And so I'm at cut 10, and I have about 90 pages written and about 70 really written. The other are just ideas down below that I'm keep throwing back up. And I have the general directory, meaning there's all kinds of stuff you know, somebody once said, oh, teach me the key, like, you know, the crone taught you. Well, that's what this book is. One gigantic key. Like, but the key is like a big sledge. It's like that big sledgehammer that you use to hit the thing, and it hits the bell right in the carnival, and a piece of lettuce stuck. That's what happens when you have no teeth. Arr. So so diversity, right? So back in the early middle ages, um, and I had worked for this company and I was a demographer, and I was looking at trends and patterns and things of that nature. And this one guy says, you know, we have this. we're getting sued, because we're not, we're hiring all these black people from Howard and stuff just to show we're hiring, and we're, having them as janitors. We're not really. So why are we doing that? We need somebody to look at that. So I did. Uh, yeah, yeah. And 10:45. So like I said, Lana, I'm gonna um, boogie out of here. I've been doing this now for 20 minutes. For about an hour from now, which will be 11:45. I will head over to where I make listen to phone calls. So between 12:30 and 1, give me a buzz. Hopefully, the stars will align. Right. Anyway, so I went there and I looked at these guys and I said, "Listen, you know, you're racist. We're not racist. Look at all these people that have PhDs that we hired, and they're janitors. We hiring black people. I said, yeah, and that's why they're suing your ass. And that's why they're going to win. You need a diversity program. A person who's a diversity chief and is working to percolate those people all through you got nobody. I mean, look who's on your board, all white men, not even women. You don't even have a woman there. And look at the 6 levels of organizational structure you have. Every one, I mean, it's all white men. You have even in things that are traditionally black and female, which is HR. You don't have anybody there. So you got to first, and there's all this bias in your business. And all these people have this bias, and they have to be shown. So I help them work out a program that would help. Everyone was going to get diversity training and da 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 da, right? And I helped pick out the people to do the training. I helped build their process, and I stuck around while they implemented it. And once I said, "Oh, this looks pretty good. You should be fine," I went off on my way, and and a couple of years later, I get a call from the CEO. He said, we're getting sued up the yin yang again. I said, really? So did you keep the program or did you get rid of it once? Because what happened was, so they had this big program, and when they finally went to court in front of a judge, they said, look, we're dealing with a problem, not a problem. And so the judge, instead of awarding the, $600 million to the guys who, went to Harvard, got a PhD in business, and then ended up as janitors in this company, they got nothing because they said, oh, there seems to be, plenty of diversity appreciation, So, well, what they did was all the people that I picked who would have really done something in that company got the axe, and they put in, the CEO's nephew and this, and they did nothing. They had the program, they had the bones of it, but they weren't implementing it or living by the letter of the law. So they got sued again. And so this time I went in and I took a look and I said, look what you did. You didn't follow any of these protocols. And then I kind of slipped a lawyer of the people who were suing this corporation, like all over that. I said, well, this is what it is, so you can get a good idea. Um, Now, give it back to me, okay? Now, go to the judge and have him order this company to give you these pieces of paper, and then you use those, and then at some point you bring me into court and have me as a expert witness, even though I hate it. And I went on and on about how I'm not an expert. I'm just a psychosocial. I said, Judge, let me see your palm. Then I got up and got out of the chair. You're not supposed to get out of the chair. I got out of the chair and I walked over to the jury and I went and read everybody's palm in the jury and everybody in the courtroom, all of the judge, his staff, the guys with the guns, the real rich lawyers representing the corporation. Everybody was like, and I just went, do, and then sat down in my seat and said, okay, And that's what I do. I am that tricky, cheeky little monkey. I am your cheeky little monkey. Yep, yep. So, um, like I said, between 12:30 and 1 my time, in about an hour and a half, I'll be okay. If you just get my answering thing, I made a big space in my answering thing. um, so, do you like my little message? Take some peace with you.
You want the last of this coffee?
Yes, please, darling.
We're fixing to clean up for breakfast.
Okay, clean up for breakfast.
Give you the last of the draw.
Yep. Which is always the best.
There you go.
My grandma said the heel of anything is always the best. Like the heel of a piece of pie.
I love the heels of bread.
Yep, the heel.
Especially if you make toast salad.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, I make my bread. Everything I had, because I don't really have refrigeration. People came to visit, and everything had mold on it, right? And I just kept cutting the mold off and eating what didn't have mold on it. And they were going, "How could you do that?"
But if you take penicillin, you're taking mold.
That's right. That's why I'm so healthy. That's why I'm so healthy.
Yeah.
I'm making my own penicillin. Let's see. Yeah, AM, PM confused me. Well, AM is when it's dark. And in Sweden, come on, everyone in Sweden is confused by the time of day because in the summer, the sun never goes down. And in the winter, it never comes up. So, Lana, do they still have, when I lived in Sweden, I lived in Forshuga, which was right between Gothenburg and Stockholm. Right. And I had a friend, I was there because my friend, who was a Boston boy, and we were anti-war guys, and he was a little older than I am, so he actually burnt his draft card. So the FBI came after him. Me, not so much. I never broke the law. I just never was around. I was always never around. And so it's not like I broke any laws. When they came looking for me, I don't know where the guy is. He was just here, and he's not now, right? And so once they caught up to me, and I went, dutifully to go visit my draft board, they said, Al, he had this file on me like this. It was like, where in the world is Carmen San Diego? So he goes, Al, we don't think we can trust you with a gun. I said, really? And he said, how'd you like to do alternative service? I said, yeah, sign me up. So they did. And that's where I became a healer because I went to Vista, Volunteers in Service to America, down into the South where I was hanging out anyway. And they put me in Memphis, Memphis. I was hanging out near Duke and Chapel Hill and furniture capital of the world, Happoint, North Carolina. But Memphis was a pretty kind of place, and they sent me out into the woods to teach little boys, right? For Head Start, and I did. I whipped those kids into shape. I went and got all the grandmas, and they gathered all the kids in one, and we didn't do it in a crap. The little place, this tar paper place they called a school, and it smelled of this chlorine and mold. And we would kill anybody. So didn't do that. We went to this one grandma's who actually she owned her farm. She was a truck farmer. Her and her husband were truck farmers, and we would keep the kids there. We wouldn't, because the homes they were from were not that good. Very similar to today. So all they ate was vegetables, and real good Southern cooking, some chicken every now and then. Here there is called meaning that all must be the same. Yep. Do not think her better than any. Yep, which is beautiful theory. Exactly, theory, because the thing I found in Sweden is everyone thought they were better than everyone else. You know, so what made me end up in Sweden? I kind of get off on these tangents. My buddy, he skipped town, right? And his father was a Marine from World War II, and so when he was anti-war, I don't have a son. And his mother, who he loved, and she loved him, never saw him again. And he went to Sweden, met this woman, and he's a great musician, and he learned all the old Swedish folk tunes and went around um, singing. When ABBA was, doing its ABBA thing, he was doing the old tunes, and he brought them back, and he made albums, and he was making money, and he was going on tour, and he was all over the world, and but he couldn't go back to America. And then he got married, and he had two kids, and he sent his wife to go visit his mother, and they were not too well, and the woman was not too. She was dying of cancer, and so my friend's wife with the two kids show up just so this woman can see. And the father would not let that woman talk to his wife, and that woman, and my friend's wife, who she's also my friend, and the two kids went and got a motel room, and they were already in a motel, and she said, I'm over at Motel 6, and the wife didn't drive, and so the wife got one of her friends, and she brought that sick woman to see her grandchildren, and they did that for a few days until the husband found out, and he called the police. Now, this woman's not breaking any law. She's in a motel, you know. Anyway, so that's what happened, and she came back, and then she died. And the father of my friend, who had never talked to him or sent him a letter or did anything, "You're dead to me," sent him a letter saying that he killed his mother. And so, we kind of really did a number on his brain. And so he went to the shrink, and he couldn't get out of his desperation, of course, because of the sunlight. All the winter it's dark, all the summer, he had issues. And hey, buddy from New Zealand, good to see you. And so yeah, exactly. I like the movie, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I thought that really got what Swedish family and culture and business and everything is like, psychopathic, And hey, brother man. So he basically he tried to kill himself. And so I went and saw him in the hospital. And I said, "You moron, what are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm so depressed." I said, "What? You got a great, your career as a musician is doing better than ever could ever do in America. You were just sitting on the corner playing your guitar. You got big audiences. You got a beautiful wife, beautiful house, beautiful kids. Why would you kill yourself?" And he says, "Well, I'm just so depressed." I said, "Can I go talk to your shrink? Can you?" So I did. He signed a little piece of paper that I wrote up saying that I could go talk to a shrink representing him. I went to the shrink, and the shrink basically said, "Oh, he isn't responding to our treatment, so I just suggested that he kill himself." And I nearly took that person apart. I was like, I pushed the person out of the way. I went like this, and my wife grabbed me and pulled me back. And then she, dragged me out of that place and took me to the fire steps and had sex with me. She loved it when I got angry like that. She tried to get me angry all the time because there was something in her where that kind of turned her on. So she's a little lady, and she grabbed me and pulled me out of the place and dragged me to the fire, thing, and we had sex on the steps. I mean, it was pretty good sex too. So then we went back there, and I said, my wife just distracted me so I wouldn't kill you. What the heck are you talking to? Well, in our protocol, if you're suffering, you should just die instead of go. He's like in his 40s. He's gonna suffer for real. I said, what about his kids? What about well, the state will take care of And I was like, and I was about and she grabbed me again and took me back to the fire steps and had sex with me again. And so she was getting doubled down on that. So she was. It was pretty amazing how strong you are when you're motivated like that. And like I said, she was weighed 110 pounds and I was 180, and she was like you know 5'7", and I'm like 6'2", and she, I mean, just dragged me out of there. Yes. So anyway, so I went to the hospital back to him. I said, "Listen, moron, get the back out of this thing. I've just learned that your government gives everyone a vacation, and you have so much vacation time, you haven't taken it. Let's go." So the wife, my wife, and the kids stayed back at his beautiful house in Fort Sugar, right, like I said, between Gutenberg and Stockholm. And we went to the airport. We looked at the list, and it had this board of all these trips. All you had to do was walk on the airplane. It was amazing, you know. So where did I take him? I took him, to Spain, to Morocco, and we hung out on the beach, and we went to all the museums, and we listened to all the music. Changed something like that. It was amazing. Right? So that's why my wife and I spent a year in Sweden. Hardly spent any time in Sweden. We just kept going on airplane rides to all around the world, right? And and what was really great was that when you got on the airplane, you got a visa with a Swedish stamp on it. And I had an international driver's license with my picture on it, and it looked very official. And it said that I lived in Portugal, Sweden. So and it was just put out by AAA. It wasn't like any real governmental anything. And this shows you the level of how governments exist, right? So, and I would get off the airplane, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a cowboy hat, pink things, and all the Swedes would be gray. Their skin would be gray. Everything about them would be gray, and they'd be like, and I'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Now, Swedes, once they leave the country and they're someplace else, they become party animals. I mean, I've never been with people who could party like those guys. So I get off the airplane, and the Swede crew that has been in Sweden or Rome or Spain or wherever they've been, waiting for the people to come off, and then they take them on tours. Those people were wild, crazy, and they'd see me coming off, and they go, "Whoa, you are not the average Swede." I said, "That's for sure. I am not Vatroget, Did I say that right? Vatroget? You know? Yep. Law and economy. And one of those two things, you see on the side of a police car, to serve and protect. Who are they serving? But the rich people. Who are they protecting? The rich people. All the stuff that's going on, where Carrot Head is rolling out the SS, to thwart the First Amendment. What are they doing? But protecting property, not people's lives. They're threatening people's lives. Say it again. Vatroget. I know I have no teeth, so, and it's been about 50 years since I uttered that word. It's how boring. How do you say how boring in Swedish? That's what I'm trying to say. Vatroget. I know I didn't say it right. So how would you say how boring in Swedish? Ow. And that was, like how Valley girls go, whatever, I would always go, Vatrug, whenever anyone said something that was, you gotta be kidding me. I would say, how boring, And back in the day, I actually could speak Swedish, I had this really interesting ear. And that's why when I go traveling, I stay there, no less than a month, Because by the time and I go someplace into the poor worker neighborhood, not the tourist area where everyone speaks English, but the area where, 5 or 6 languages are being spoken. And when I lived in Paris, no one spoke English. Everyone spoke French, and everything else, and everybody was dark too. And I think I'm saying I have no idea what I'm saying. Let me say that first off. But what I was trying to say was whatever. Really, what I was saying was how boring. How boring. How do you say how boring in Swedish? You're not. You are sweet. You're my little Anna. How boring. How do you say how boring in Swedish? How boring. Which is a great response to any. Whenever somebody who thinks they're really important, who thinks they are, they're the expert. They know, like this scholastic mentality. And I call them maleistic. I would say, va, tråkigt. Yep, that's it. I was close. Va, tråkigt. Va, tråkigt. Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Va, tråkigt. Kinda, yeah, exactly. And that's it. It's like I grew up in Harlem, and over on the west side was Spanish Harlem, and those guys used to speak what I would call Spanglish. So they'd say this much of the sentence in Spanish, this much in English, this much in something else. I know all the ummats. I was never good with the ummats. So that's like in my new novel, Legend. I give hey, this is what this is about, and then I give a little whoop-de-doo of. So this is America right here. Watch this.
To take it from you.
Whoops.
This idea that you're going to vote your way out of this is not real. And it's just sad that there isn't a leader in this country worth a shit. There isn't a leader in this country.
See that lady? She's in her 80s.
To get anything done.
And the government took everything away, so she had to get a job.
I tell the truth about Russiagate, and the other people who know the truth are afraid to tell it.
Now, Jimmy is.
Politicians who know the truth are afraid to tell it. They're gutless, ballless, fucking self-serving. Talking into this camera, because when I'm talking to this camera on YouTube, I think about all the other YouTube shows that are letting you down. And there's nothing I can say. They won't even pressure. What you're supposed to be doing is pressuring your favorite politicians. Not the ones you hate or the ones who disagree.
So Jimmy Dore, he's a third-rate, shopping mall comedian, right? And so he had no thing. But as soon as he got himself a little, and he's doing his YouTube show out of his mother's basement where he lives, and I think, so it's called the Jimmy Dore Show. He is the best news reporter in the United States by far. Better than CBS, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, any of those guys, because he is just coming straight from his heart, not from what they're paying him, And so, and he's not reading a script. He's just, and he spends all day looking at what's going on, and then he reports it 3 or 4 times a day. So go look at Jimmy Dore, and that'll give you a good picture. And the stuff that's going on in the cities where they're sending, and they are stormtroopers, they are the SS, and what's truly interesting is that all of what Carrot Head is doing was only made possible by the laws that Barack. Hey, sweetie,
Hi, how are you?
you're looking good today. Yes, very nice.
I'm not working today.
Oh, you just came to visit. That's why you don't have your mask on. Yep.
Forgot about the mask.
See, I wear it as a fashion statement. You know? You know, anytime I need it, it's right there.
Yeah, I do too. I hate it. I hate it. But it's, I guess it's so.
Well, it's not a bad idea to
It
do.
probably isn't.
No.
I would hate to be have something.
See, your boss just told you what. Arr. So, yep, he reports from the basement of his mother's house, and he's the best. Jimmy Dore, go take a look, right? Another really good guy is a guy named Dark Journalism, right? Really good one. And Truth Video, another good one. And a woman who puts out these things truly graceful. Her name's Grace. She makes, I mean, Jimmy Dore is like me. He just hits the go button and does like a, stream of consciousness. But he does his homework and he has subjects that he talks. He doesn't do like me. He's not a griot. He doesn't tell you a story, but he is like focused like a laser beam on this side or the other thing. And he showed a video of in Portland where this big guy and in yellow jackets, and they're like arm in arm protecting the kids from the Gestapo. And it was truly amazing because the Gestapo were hitting grandma.
Quit talking that box.
Quit talking to that box. That's around the world, Richard. Hey, Richard. Yeah. So. Anyway, we're taking out grandma with, big sticks, hitting grandma with a stick. And they showed this one picture where they had these big bottles under great pressure of, mace. And they grabbed grandma by the head and they just stuck this thing in her face. So now there are these vets, and they all have the American flag, vets protecting grandma who's protecting the kids, right? And so Jimmy had this picture of this vet who's a Marine, and he's probably in his 40s, and he's big. He's like 6'6". He's like a tree. And, he, kind of went in front of it, got everyone to be behind him, and he just, was like this. And he was saying, I served here and I served there, and he had his medals, right? And he goes, I love my country. Do you? And 10 of these, SS guys, and they were like a third of his size, and they had their big sticks, and they were wailing on him, and he just stood there, and they were like, and he had no helmet, no nothing, and they're just wailing on him. He doesn't even move, and so they start hosing him down with this, right? Doesn't even flinch. Then they start shooting him with, bean bags at point blank, and he, and when they try to force him down, and he has to somewhat protect as soon as he had to, because they were leaving him and going after other people, so that's when he kind of, instead of just being the tree, and they really, and they couldn't, and at a certain point they left because they got frustrated, and he just turned around and flipped him a bird and walked away. But that's because he was in state. He was being protected by love's co-creation, right? And that is what all of this is showing everyone right in their face. You can't just ignore this. This is, it's my sister who lives a very comfortable life because she basically was power of attorney over my dad's money, and she did whatever she did with it. So, and she, she made sure her kids got to college. But now she had 6 kids, and now each of those kids had 6 kids. So she's got close to 20 grandchildren, if not more or less, somewhere around there. And my parents aren't there. My parents' money isn't there anymore. So those kids are basically falling behind. And so she lives in this place in New Jersey where it's all stockbrokers and bankers. And their public school used to be very good, but now, because just on the other side of the tracks are Black and Hispanics who moved there, and so now their public school is starting to be a little bit of that. So basically, all the rich people started their own private schools that Black people don't have. It's private. And so all her grandchildren are like off the cliff, free fall, and they all see 2 of her kids married Hispanic people, and now she has a mixed race vote. And when I said, "So, how you doing with this, Black?" She said, "Well, that doesn't affect me." I said, "Well, you've got grandchildren of color." I said, "No, they're white." And I said, "Really?" I said, "So what happens when it doesn't matter who either Joe or Carrot Head win, because Joe is in actuality worse than Carrot Head, right? And Carrot Head was just hired to be a distraction, while because he did not put anyone in charge of anything, so he didn't change any of the laws. He's letting all of these. It's like nearby me. There's a city called Kingsport, and that's how rich everybody is there. And that is where Kodak Chemical is. And Kodak Chemical um, made a lot of money. Kind of got started in the Civil War making ammunition for the South. Right? Then Spanish War came, and they made in that big American Modern Army. They made the ammunition for those big boats with big guns. World War One made a lot of money off of explosives. And then World War II, just down the road from Kingsport, is Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And that's where they turned uranium, the ore that you dig out of the ground, into U-238 through centrifuges. But that is actually a very big, complicated, almost, what do they call it? Shaman. I forget, but chemical process, very, very sophisticated. Because you got to do this with acid, and then this with that, and then you turn it into hexafluorocane, and then you do that, then you put it in a centrifuge, and it turns into this yellow cake, and then you do that, and then you do this. Lots of chemicals. And in that process, they discovered, by inventing all these new chemical processes, plastics. That's where kind of plastic came out of. It didn't come out of DuPont. It came out of Kodak Chemical. And Kodak Chemical makes all of the base chemicals, which were basically are made from propane and natural gas. And those, when they used to drill for oil, they used to burn those things off, right? But now they learn, oh, well, we can make plastics out of this stuff. But you have to turn those and they store them. So over there at Kingsport, they have the 2 largest liquid propane, LPN, liquid propane gas, and LNG, liquid natural gas, and each are about 1 billion gallons of this stuff. Now it's a liquid, so it means it's squeezed. When you light your stove and natural gas or propane goes, just think of that gas in your stove multiplied by 1 million times. And that's what the energy force of that is when you turn it into a liquid. So these morons are storing it in these 2 big, gigantic underground tanks. When you're on I-26, you drive by, you see the top 30 stories. That's only the top 1/5 of that tank. You say, oh, well, look, that's a big tank. Well, that's only a 1/5. The rest of the 4/5 is underground. And they had to do that because if they didn't have that much, and that's an area where the liquid kind of turns into a gas that they kind of take off and turn into all these plastics. So, Carrot Head didn't get rid of the EPA. He didn't get rid of OSHA. He didn't get rid of all the, like, they used to have 30 OSHA, um, you know, guys who would keep an eye on the process, so they wouldn't break protocols, just save a few pennies, inspectors. Well, what happened was Carrot Head didn't, he has an acting um, person running OSHA, not somebody who had to go through the Senate. So that guy can do whatever the heck he wants. Now, he doesn't change the law. He doesn't do anything because only the Congress can do that. But what he can do is administer. So he fired everybody. He went from having 28,000 inspectors to having three. And now at this plant, there's only one inspector where there used to be 30, watching everything. And now when the whole pandemic thing went, they didn't close the plant. They just got rid of 92% of their employees. And so a scarecrow crew is running this, and that is like cruising for a bruising. Now, if anything goes wrong, I don't know if any of you kids remember Bhopal in India, where this chemical plant blew up and killed almost, affected 1 million people, killed a few 100,000, and, everyone else later died later, and they called it something else. So, Union Carbide was running that, but I see all of these companies, Union Carbide, DuPont, Dole, all of those are Monsanto, Bayer. They're all transnational. They're all on each other's boards. All just one big company. And so here they are making billions of dollars, making this stuff, and they're selling it to China. That's who their big client is. And this little tiff that it looks like we're going to have with China. No, China is part of the game because China has way worse problems than we do. And so they need an outside boogeyman to keep their own country together, just like Russia. Russia, the Cold War was our buddy, right? So, Lana, you're kind of close to Russia. What's your take on Russia? Yep. Right now is plastic health works the front line. Yeah. And in America, people dying are people on the front line, and most of them are colored because they're poor and they're working in the hospitals and they're getting paid nothing, and they got to take the subway, and that's why New York was a mess, and it still is. America's a mess, and it was done on purpose. The leadership, Jimmy's going on about, your leaders are killing you. Oh, Finland. I love Finland. Finland, those people are nuts, but in a fun kind of way. In Sweden, people are neurotic and crazy and sociopathic. But in Finland, I remember hitchhiking across, from Norway to Finland to Poland. And again, I had these Swedish documents, and my first wife was with me, and we got picked up by this Swedish guy. You're not supposed to smoke in your car when you're driving in Sweden. So this Finn would do, and he would stop and pull over and like smoke 3 cigarettes, and and he had nicotine patches. This guy was addicted, and as soon as he stopped, when we got in the car, I was going to sit in the shotgun seat, but he was like, no, girl. And so as soon as he stopped, he started rubbing her leg, like, ooh, nice. And then he'd go off and finish, like a Jabberwocky. And my wife wound up and bam, and he liked it. So I was always impressed by the Finnish people. They're really fun. That F in Finn stands for fun. So stay tuned for even more chaos and insanity. But that's been the show for the last, 100,000 years or so, and people who think, I talk to people, we're get ready for the Hunger Games here, and oh, that'll never happen. We're a democracy, and we've been a democracy for so long. Good luck with that. Look what happened to Germany. Before Adolf, the Weimar Republic was the strongest, best democracy in European history. Democracy, not. In the United States, not even a friggin' democracy. We're a republic. What does that mean? What does that mean, Sensei Alba? What does that mean? It means rich people, started it, and they made the rules for them, not for us. And that's what a guy named George Carlin tried to say. Why vote when it's a fixed game, right? It does, get your hopes up. If you look at everybody who's, been president or been a politician in my life, you know, straight up, because anybody who tried to do something righteous, stood up, wouldn't take the money, wouldn't take the envelope, wouldn't do something stupid to get blackmailed, they ended up dead. And that's been in American history since the beginning. Just look at Hamilton. He ended up dead, and it was pretty obvious, that he was, making waves after everything got going, and after the government existed and the English left, kind of. And he was trying to hold everyone's feet to the fire. And everyone, oh, come on, the revolution's over. We're in it to make money. And, the guy who shot him didn't know which end of the gun to use, meaning there was somebody over there, a sharpshooter, who shot Hamilton. And because the guy who he had a duel with also got shot. But they don't tell you in the history books that the person who shot that guy was himself. He shot himself in the foot. And so he didn't, and they had guns that, didn't have bullets in them. They had to put a ball in and this and do that in and light the wick. And there was some guy over there that shot Hamilton. Autocrats, yep. No, sweetie, you are brilliant. You are a luminescent genius, right? A photonic light, Yes, a democracy is in America, and I'm sure they have this thing called three-card Monte. It's the guy with a table. He's got three cards, and he's moving them around. And you put a dollar down and say, the ace is there. And he turns it over, nope, not there. And that's democracy in America, right? And the only person who makes it, look at every single president. The rich got richer, during Obama's 8 years. Did the poor, there were more people evicted. And right now, they just sent out 28 million eviction notices in America saying, hey, that was last Friday. And I think this Friday, and most of those people who got it were people who weren't going to get another check. And so landlords, and this was time, we had a thing where you couldn't throw people out if they weren't paying their rent. And as of last Friday, they could. So at least they sent out the letters. I think it's this Friday where they can send in the mortgage. 28 million, like that, thrown on the street. That should be interesting. That'll, get a lot more of those. That's what Carrot Head is. And I would love to see somebody ask Carrot Head, Mr. President, what does the word anarchist mean? Right? And you know what anarchist means? It doesn't mean to blow things up or do any of that stuff. Anarchists were from the French Revolution. And after the Revolution, they started a thing because at the end of it, the place that ended up with the most guns was Paris, right? They're militia. And they had the big guns. And they put a circle of big guns around Paris so no warlord could come in. And they started a thing called the Paris Commune. Go look that up. Because one of the first times Mary Shelley's mother or grandmother was there, and she coined the phrase free love. Not that she was going to screw every guy, but that free love was meant that she did not want the church or the state to tell her who she had to marry. Because back in the day, the bishop or the king or the duke had premotes, which meant they could screw. If you were going to get married, the girl got screwed first by the bishop, then by the duke, or first the king, and then the bishop, and then the duke. And then after she was all soggy, would hand it over to the husband for the honeymoon. And that's why the women had, the box of gold. So um, that's how it's ever been. And so. And that's how it's ever been in America. We're ruled by the golden rule. Who has the gold rules? So the more you see, the more you forget. That's right. That's why it was invented. And this also, all of this, Steve, what's his name, did not. Apple did not invent the smartphone. You know, DARPA did, the Defense Department, because the little camera there was invented to be put on the spy satellite. The touch screen, it was invented to be on the glass screens of the fighter planes. Everything in this world came out of the Defense Department, came out of your tax dollars. So. A few more minutes and then I'm off to where I can make phone calls, right? So, Poland. Oh yes, Poland. All of those states that were given freedom, democracy, are basically being and they're not going into the Iron Curtain. They're going into the fascist curtain, which was, again, this is a transnational thing. And I think I told you a story about the Ukraine. Back in 2015, I was running, I was the action community coordinator for this church. I was supposed to become a center of community church activism for the poor. And I did it once, and I really spun that place up. But then the old ladies who really ran the place, but we wanted to do nice things like, have bake sales, but you're like, bringing kids in here and teaching them how to read, and they're little black kids, and we don't want black people, we're not racist, So, and I took it to the, everybody, anybody who needed a place to have their meeting, the communists, the socialists, and of course we had none of that. But the guy who had the work he had these girls from Ukraine who wanted to tell what was going on in the Ukraine. And the Ukraine, as soon as the Iron Curtain came down, they were like the people who wear the Lodnas, traditionalists, the guys who were Nazis, the Nazis showed up in the Ukraine and pushed the Russians out. There were a bunch of people who liked the Nazis, right? And then there were a bunch of people who liked being Russian, right? And so those were the main three, the traditional guys, Grandpa with the Loddenhausen and the Nazis, and they were like kind of semi-balanced. And then there were the guys, which were the majority of the people in Ukraine, who just wanted to have Audi and a leather jacket, and so they wanted to be part of the EU. And so, and their political guy was playing the two sides. He wanted to be the Yugoslavia, like the new, play the two sides to get the most out of both sides. And then something happened. While everybody was having fun with the new times for the first 20 years, so they only had one TV, just like you in Sweden had one TV channel that was like on from 6 p.m. until 1 in the morning. When I was there in the 60s and 70s, but now it's a zillion channels, cable, internet. And so that happened to Ukraine. And so they all of a sudden got five, like Fox News, CNN, but Ukrainian style. And so they were getting fake news from all these things that were like being used to break up the public into, I hate you. And that's where their civil war came from. Right? And with Russia on the border constantly doing this, and Putin isn't Russian. He's not. He is. He like works. In James Bond books, they had Smersh. That transnational entity that was trying to sow chaos so they could take over. That's what I call the hidden hand or the high table. And so that's kind of what is happening to Poland, Hungary, the Ukraine, all of those countries along the border there. Well, communism, socialism, capitalism, those things don't really exist. They're economic theories that describe something that doesn't exist. Communism is where everyone shares to their own best ability. That's what it is. No. Capitalism is exceptionalism. No. In capitalism here, we live in a capitalist state. That's where capitalists, people with the capital, own the country. Every state, every city, every county is incorporated. It's a corporation. We passed a law in 1879, which basically put a Sharpie through "We the People," and they wrote in "We the Corporations," and that's when they made D.C., District of Columbia, which is the corporate center of America. And what is America's largest corporate business? War. That's why the Pentagon is satanically placed on that piece of property. So communism, no, there is no such thing, because back in the day when Russia, USSR existed, what that was state capitalism. American is a capitalist state. Russia was state capitalist when the state owned everything, right? And they didn't share. The average Russian was running around in a crummy little cardboard car and eating beets, which I do love, and nothing else, and just basically suffering. And the guys who were on the Politburo, they had the $1,000 suits and ran around in Mercedes, right? And that's what's going on today. So, communism, forget about it. Socialism, these are economic theories that were invented by the French in the 1790s and have nothing to do with what's going on now. And what's in every country's culture is the aggro-ness of fears. They are not. Everyone wants to blame the other. They don't want to look at themselves. They don't want to point the finger at themselves. What is racism? In America, oh yeah, the racism. It's a terrible thing, but it's just a bad apple in a bunch. No, sorry, every white person in America is a freaking racist. I am, but I'm aware of it, and I try to deal with it, and I try to step up to it, right? And that's the whole concept of exceptionalism. Not so much. So, well, we've been at this for a long time, and I want to drive over there so I can start talking on the phone. So, watch this guy over again. I will try and do one on Saturday. It's supposed to rain tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. Weekend's supposed to be kind of nice, but I live in a rainforest, who knows? So the best thing we can do is have love in our heart. We have to exist to serve love's co-creation, not any political structure, not any ideology. To believe in anything is to basically be a moron. What one has to is live love's co-creation. Our other is our brother, our sister, our mother. And every day we have to take the piece of the earth and make it stronger through love's co-creation. Do the things that you love to do and be that person. Okay? Okay, so I love you guys, and I'm gonna go out with Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord with thee, blessed art thou amongst women, blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, uh, pray for us sinners now, and the hour of our death. Amen. Yep, you have to think with your heart. Forget about the squirrel in your head. Right? Think with your heart. Yep, I love you, BB. I love you all. Everyone who's been on the chat right now, I love you all. And I love everyone here. And in every day and every way, take the peace of the earth and make it stronger with you, Bacadre. So say we all. So say we all. Go to my xrated.blogspot.com. Go take a look at Legacy number 10. There are a lot of interesting things in there. Landon, go take a look at that and write down whatever makes you scratch your head. We'll talk about it next time we're on. So I'm going to be out of here in about 10-15 minutes. And it takes me about a half an hour to drive over to where I can receive a phone call. And I will be over there for about 2 hours talking on the phone to people. And again, you can get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me at thedudewake42@gmail. That's my Gmail. That's very good. I do look at it way more than I listen to my phone's voicemail. And you can message me if you have my phone number on that. I love you all. Talk to you later. Okay, and get some more people to watch the show. Get some more subscribers, and everybody hit that bell a couple of times because a lot of you say I wasn't told. I said, well, hit the bell again. The power shouldn't be definitely. They don't get rid of me. They just keep me on the down low, which is okay. Quality over quantity, I would say. And everyone here is what I consider high quality folk. I love you all. Talk to you later.